Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Heartstopper, Season 1, Episode 7, Bully. In this episode, things finally really come to a head with good old Harry. I knew it was gonna have to, but I hated watching this. I really did. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Cindy for commissioning this episode. Cindy's here in the chat. Thank you for coming, Cindy. You guys, this is a rough one. This is a really rough one. And it's kind of funny because as much as it comes to a head, it doesn't come to a head with Charlie. I kind of thought it might go there. And it doesn't actually, which sort of makes sense. And that's not to say that Harry isn't bullying Charlie, because he absolutely is. But Charlie is so unwilling to stand up for himself that I should have kind of known it wouldn't be with Charlie. It would be with Tao. And I did, to a point, know, it would also include Tao, but I thought that they would come after Charlie in a much more underhanded way. I thought that there would be an attempt to sort of separate him from Nick and mess with him in a way that Nick couldn't see, and rely on the fact that Charlie wouldn't tell Nick about it. And that was sort of what I was anticipating, because let's be honest. If they were bullying Charlie out of sight of Nick, I do not think Charlie would tell Nick about it. Right? He's so convinced that everything is his fault by the end of this. And it made me so angry that Tao actually says as much to him. I will never forgive Tao for that. I'm sure I will forgive him. I say that. But, you guys, let's just start at the beginning, shall we? Let's just start things off. So, getting ready for school in the morning, Charlie is looking in the mirror and his sister sneaks up on him the way that she always does. And he finally tells her that him and Nick are going out, which she already knows. I love that he's looking through his sneakers, deciding which ones to wear. They are all the exact same pair of Converse, Chuck Taylors, depending on where you grew up. We always called them Converse when I was in school, and I didn't hear the term Chuck Taylors until I was 19. But he has 10 pairs in all different colors. And honestly, these are the kind of shoes that I feel like can go with so many outfits that I really envy people who can wear them, but they're extremely narrow and they have no support in them at all. So I tried to wear a pair not too long ago for weightlifting, because the fact that they are so flat makes them really good for weightlifting, and I couldn't do it. It was not happening. And I was like, oh, but they're so cute. But yeah, him telling her he is so excited. And I really appreciated her being like, wait, you're going to a movie with his friends? Are you sure that you want to do that? Because none of them really seem as nice as he does. And we have then a brief moment where Charlie is remembering him and Ben in the library. You guys, I hate Harry for sure, but I hate Ben so much more. Ben feels like the kind of person who would pass anti-gay legislation while knowing that he himself is gay, but just not facing up to that. Like, Ben is really, truly harmful in a way that Harry can't quite be. Not to say that Harry doesn't do his own kind of harm, because he definitely does, but his is an easier attack to just shrug off, because it's so like ham-fisted and immature that you can just sort of, whatever, he's just like that with everybody. And Ben is so much more attacking in a very particular way, trying to get at Charlie. And it's like evil. It's just evil. The way that he is coming at him, the malice in it, and how it's all coming from this place of just self-loathing. And I can know that and have like some sympathy in an abstract way for the fact that it's coming from there. But it does not excuse it at all. If anything, it makes it worse, because the self-loathing is compounded by the fact, clearly, that Charlie is being who he is. And he's jealous of that, you know? So this scene, Charlie is asking him, do you ever want to come back to mine just to hang out? And he says, we hang out here. And he says, well, I thought since we're boyfriends. And Ben, like, who had been very languid and sort of looking like he was half asleep, he jerks to attention and turns and looks at him and says, what? We're not boyfriends. Why would you think we're boyfriends? And the way the animation comes in, it is like a mirror cracking and breaking apart with Charlie's face, and, you know, just clear heartbreak. And every time we get to see another moment of the time that Charlie spent with Ben, it makes me so angry that Charlie thought this was what he deserved. And he really thought, this was as good as it's going to get from me. I have to tolerate it. And I think that this is like the nature in some ways of high school relationships. Like, if you guys heard some of the things that I put up with from my high school boyfriend, like, truly, I want to go back in time and slap and shake myself. But I really thought that he was so special and that I was so lucky. And it's like, looking back, he was the lucky one, that I hadn't wised up to what a fucking loser he was, and how he was like, I was completely out of his league and simply did not see it. But I did not believe that. I did not believe it in any sense. So he gets dropped off by his dad, who is very like protective of him. He keeps saying, if any of these guys fucks with you, just tell me, you know, make sure to tell me. And Charlie is like, Nick's going to be there. I'll be fine. And you see his dad giving him this sort of sad, uncertain look as he gets out of the car. And not for nothing, Nick was there the other time that your dad had to pick you up where you sobbed into his shoulder, bruh. So I wouldn't be taking that as gospel either. So Nick gives him a big hug, and they go inside, and he's like, are you sure that you are going to be okay, or that I'm going to be okay with your friends being there? And Nick says, yeah, it'll be fine. Ben and Harry are not going to be there. And it turns out both of them are there. It can't even just be one of them. It has to be both of them. And I love when when Charlie says, I think they just think I'm this gay nerd. And Nick is like, you are a gay nerd, though. And he's like, shut up, rugby lad. So They get off the escalators, and there's Harry. Oh, look, it's Nick and his best mate. And both of them are clearly on the spot. There's a dude next to Harry who's rubbing his hands together in a very like, ooh, I can't wait for this drama kind of moment. Like, I really hated that whole vibe. And as they're walking to the theater, Harry, I think, is asking Ben, is he your friend? And Ben says, I've never even spoken to him. I just really, really want to point out how unnecessarily Ben keeps distancing himself from Charlie. Like, it's not to any, I don't really have a point exactly. It's just, it's so dramatic how much he always insists he doesn't know Charlie at all in any way, that it feels almost like you are doing too much. And it's like the same thing as when in the hallway, Charlie just said hi, and he's like, why are you saying hi to me? I don't even know you. If you're trying to like convince people you don't know him, that's not the way. You just be like, hey, with an expression of like, don't know why you're talking to me, but fine. You don't need to make a fucking meal out of it. It's like, he's just so bad at all of this. So he, it says, let's go get popcorn. It's clear Nick just wants to break him off from the group of friends. And he says, I don't want any popcorn. I'm not too hungry. And Nick says, Char, and like touches his arm. I had no idea they'd be here. I wouldn't suggest we'd come if I had known. And Charlie says, Char. And it was sort of funny to me because when he says Char, I was like, that's a really bad nickname. And I think where that's coming from is those who aren't aware, I record a lot of other podcasts with a co-host. They are not mostly like alone. And the one I did with Miles covering the Dark Tower series, there's a joke about the word char in that series that it became kind of a thing. But suffice to say, char means death in that series. So when I saw that, I was just like, oh no. It's like when somebody calls me Nat. Like technically, yeah, you could do that as like a nickname, but it feels wrong to me. And I think that Charlie feels short already. The only other one is Chuck, right? Like Charles short is Chuck, which has never made sense to me. But honestly, most of the nicknames we have for different names don't make sense to me. So what are you going to do? Like Robert being Bob. We just decided some weird shit and it has persisted. That's all there is to it. However, I do understand the being like, oh, he gave me a nickname. Sorry, That's My Book says Charlie doesn't tell his dad about Ben later. He never told his art teacher he was bullied for 4 months. Left to his own devices, Charlie would just keep getting beaten down. Yeah, exactly. Which is what I thought. I thought that this episode was going to be. We're watching him get like put up with shit and not tell Nick, and like eventually later Nick would find out. And part of me is glad that's not what we got, but so anyway, this moment between the two of them, it's just sort of like a bit of the two of them getting to be at ease again after the tension of his friends and the whole like sense of maybe this was a mistake. So when they go to the theater, everything seems like, okay, maybe we're back to normal again. And they're watching a horror movie. So everybody's pretty fixated on the screen. But at one point, Nick jumps and he grabs Charlie's hand without meaning to. But then after they pull apart, he looks around to see who's watching and reaches over and touches his hand on purpose, intertwines his little pinky finger with his, which was the literal cutest thing in the world. And eventually, full-on hand-holding. And he glances over. I really thought, because when he glances over, Harry's face is turned toward him. And I really thought it was going to be Harry looking dead in his face. Instead, he's just looking at the guy next to him and talking to him, but there's nothing to indicate he has seen. So I'm thinking, oh, we're good. It turns out somebody did see, but they are not the person I was focused on in any sense. So we'll get there. They leave the theater, and Harry has to fucking push it. The two of them are talking. Harry comes up between them and pushes them apart, as he literally does all the time. Throws an arm around Charlie's neck in a very like, oh, we're just friends here, but I could give you a noogie at any second, which he does almost do later. Quick question, what's it like being gay? You don't seem that gay, to be honest. You do sound sort of gay, but that's it. Do you like musicals? And Nick grabs him by the shoulder and pulls him off and says, can you piss off, please? What sort of guys do you like then? I don't know. What about Harry Styles? He's pretty sexy. I guess. And Nick says, just leave it. And finally, what about Nick? Do you think he's hot? And Charlie says, are you joking? Nick's not even my type. Which, honestly, I was a little bit impressed that he just went extremely hard right away. And was just like, this motherfucker? Absolutely not. I don't love it, obviously, because of all the context. And even though he knows that Charlie's just saying this, Nick almost does seem hurt by it. But Harry says, you have a crush on him. And again, Charlie says no. Harry comes up to him, and this is when he starts to do the noogie. Nick yanks him off and says, just stop. Wow, take a joke, mate. Always. That's always it. So we see Charlie stalking away in the background, and Nick turns, sees how far Charlie's gotten, and chases after him. But Harry is watching after with a really genuinely angry look on his face, which I think we have seen Charlie, or not, sorry, I keep doing this. We have seen Harry basically get the worst end of it in verbal banter with Tao. We have seen Nick tell him to stop being homophobic and I don't even like you. I don't feel like he looked as upset at either of those moments as he looks here. This expression, this is like, before it was just sort of an embarrassment and a frustration at being shown up. This is the expression somebody has before they have a fight. Like, the fact that they come to blows later is no surprise after you see this look. So Nick follows Charlie out the back door and is trying to be like, hey, I'm really, really sorry. Charlie's just, my dad's here. I have to go. And is walking away in a, like, I don't want to even talk about this kind of way. That surprised me. I really thought he was going to be like waiting for Nick to talk, if anything. And it sort of feels like he is so embarrassed that Nick saw him get picked on like that. It's a really interesting dynamic because, you know, me in Charlie's place, and I'm going to be waiting for Nick to be the one that's embarrassed because he should be, because he's not doing enough here. But Charlie doesn't have that sense of self-worth to understand he deserves to be stood up for. So he's walking away because he feels like he's causing trouble. And Nick says Harry was being a complete idiot and some of the others were being really unfriendly. And we should have just left. And he says, Nick, I'm honestly used to it by now. I'll see you at school. And you can see when he says that, Nick is heartbroken. And later on, when he attempts again, I'm used to it. There is a real, it's that's the part that makes him the most angry. You know, it's the part that's the most upsetting is he is just so completely expecting this kind of treatment that it's just not even really on his radar the way that it would be if he were used to being treated well. It's just it's so much worse. So this is when he's almost gotten to the car, and here comes Ben. I am so livid with this little asshole. I saw you holding hands with him in the cinema. Are you going out with him then? No. But are you getting with him? No. Don't lie. Well, I believe that you're not going out with him, as if anyone would ever want to go out with someone as desperate as you. Thank you so much, Charlie, for you did. Appreciate it. Ben then says, are you joking? You actually thought I liked you? You were there like some tragic loser with barely any friends who ate lunch alone and let bullies walk all over you. I never liked you. I'm not even gay. I just felt really sorry for you. And this is so hilarious. The idea that Ben is trying to say, 1, I'm not even gay. 2, I didn't even really like you. Bitch, why are you here then? If I don't mean anything to you, if this doesn't matter, why have you chased me down? After telling your friends you don't even know who I am, you broke off from them to find me. What do you think that, And I hate this because fucking Charlie, it's clear all of these shots are hitting him. And I don't want them to hit. I want him to realize how utterly absurd what Ben is saying to him actually is. But his sense of self-worth is at such a low right now after everything that happened that he's willing to believe any bad thing anybody says about him. The idea of I'm not even gay, I just felt sorry for you. That's not how that works, bro. What do you mean? It's just it's really, really ugly. And he really is up in his face as he says this. And thankfully, Charlie's dad rolls up. But the whole vibe here feels dangerous to me. And Ben just looks so angry. There's just a level of rage to him and to Harry that we haven't seen before. And I'm really wondering how things are going to shake out with Ben, because as much as I hate Harry and want him to get dealt with, Ben is the one that worries me. Genuinely worries me. Ben feels like the kind of guy who would hurt Charlie out of some misplaced sense of self-loathing. And it would be one of those things that nobody ever found out who did it kind of thing. And I really hate this. So Nick goes inside and confronts Harry. What is your problem with Charlie? And Harry, he doesn't exactly fit in with us, does he? He can't play rugby. He's got this weird friend who won't leave me alone, which is hysterical. Again, sir, you instigate every time. Tao does not want to start with you, ever, but you make him. You can't just bring some gay boy into our group and expect us all to immediately love him. And again, he says none of us are being homophobic, but then a minute later uses the F slur. And this is the kind of thing that it's like, this is how people are. You know, they try and pretend, no, it's not like that. And then they do the fucking thing. And you want to be able to crow over that and be like, see, I fucking knew it. You just basically admitted it. But there's no satisfaction in it because they weren't really trying to pretend that wasn't what it was. They don't care. It's not like I have this terrible habit of thinking that logic has a place in these sorts of confrontations and arguments. And it just doesn't with people like this. It's not about logic. It's not about making an argument. It's not about convincing anybody. People like this only respond to you cutting them out and not feeding the beast. It's basically like dealing with an in-person troll. And the only way to cut them off effectively is to find a way that they can't because what I want to make clear here is I am not saying ignore a bully and he will go away. Super not true. Sometimes some bullies are looking for a reaction, and if they don't get it, they'll leave off because they get bored. But most bullies, they enjoy the harm and the body language of the fact that you are suffering and embarrassed. They don't need a big reaction. They just need to feel like everybody around them is afraid of them enough that they are on their side for now. It's a feeling of power and belonging. And so ignoring doesn't do the trick, really. What you need to do with somebody who's like this is pull all of the people behind them away and convince them this person isn't worth standing behind, so that they no longer have this eager, sycophantic crowd behind them that they can turn to and laugh with. And I don't know how you manage to do that with Harry, because if they all are still willing to turn a blind eye, not even, I say that, they are all willing to laugh along with his jokes 100%. I'm acting like I'm still kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt here when they don't deserve it. I just don't know that you can unseat Harry as the bully here. I don't know how that even could happen. So anyway, Nick says you made him so uncomfortable with your gay questions. And he says someone really needs to learn to take a joke. And Nick says, but you weren't joking though, were you? You saw the perfect opportunity to make someone feel miserable and humiliated as usual. And this is when Harry says, I'm sure he can deal with it. He's probably used to it by now, which is the exact fucking thing. And then he leans forward and shoves Nick. Which really, considering that he's been insisting this is all a joke, the reach forward and shove shouldn't be a factor. It shouldn't be part of this, Harry, if you're just joking. But of course, it's not a joke. It's not about that. And when he sees how angry Nick gets, he says, you can't help but be protective of him, can you? Because he's a pathetic little... And when he says the F word, Nick decks him in the face. And I gotta say, I've never been prouder. There are some reasons to punch somebody. There are some times where violence is the answer. And later on, his mom is like, fighting isn't the answer. look, that's a mom's job to say that. I get it. What else is she going to say? However, sometimes violence is exactly the answer, though. Like, I'm not trying to be cute. I mean it. Sometimes you gotta punch a dickhead in the face. That's just the world, man. Sometimes you've got to let somebody know if they continue doing what they've been doing, they're gonna get physically hurt. Because some people only ever hear that kind of threat and believe in that kind of threat. And I want more fighting, honestly. I want people to stop doing the whole violence isn't the answer as much as we do, because we have reached this weird point, especially in the United States, where people have this idea of what it means to protest. And I'm not trying to say that certain types of peaceful protest are ineffective, because they're certainly effective depending on how they are implemented. However, we have gotten so sanitized about what's acceptable, even with protesting. If protesters shut down a particular road, all anybody can talk about is whether or not that was really appropriate, actually. Even things that are as simple as that. And we've gotten to a point where it's yeah, people are rioting due to police brutality. They should riot. But then it turns into a conversation. They're destroying their own neighborhoods. So why are you mad about it? It's the kind of thing that I always the only thing that we really value in this country anymore is money, property. We are in a hyper-capitalist hellscape. Destroying property is actually the logical way to protest at this point. But we just want to pretend that our withdrawal from physical confrontation is like some sort of elevated way of approaching problems, that this means that we are... Do you understand what I'm saying? That this means that we are more evolved. And really, in the course of history, we've never gotten human rights by being please give me human rights politely. That's never been how that worked. And I just have no problem with violence or rioting in the face of the kinds of absolute bald-faced injustice that we have captured on fucking film, that certain types of people get to just walk away from. I just don't have a problem with it. So anyway, violence is necessary sometimes. And in this particular case, I was 100% all about it. And I was really surprised, because I thought that maybe some of the boys would join in and really gang up on Nick. It doesn't seem like that happened. It seemed like we saw only a brief moment of this fight. And it seemed like there was one kid who was trying vainly to sort of separate them. And then we jump right to later with his mother. Later on, when Harry fights Tao, everybody is just in a circle watching the fight, and nobody's trying to jump in, which honestly I was grateful for, because I really thought that maybe they would all throw in against Tao. It's one thing to not join in with Harry fighting their own friend, Nick, but I kind of thought they might go ahead and do it with Tao, and I was just really relieved they didn't. So yeah, he's in the car with his mom. She says, "You're going to tell me what happened?" He starts with, "There's not anything to tell." And she's like, "Dude, come on." And I love that the dog is in the car and he's like stroking her head. She's right there. It's so sweet. And he says Harry was saying some really nasty stuff about Charlie. He's been really gross and mean about him for ages. And I just lost it. And I'm so angry at myself for not seeing that all of my friends suck. This is when she says fighting isn't the answer. And he says, I know, but he used a really bad word. And when he says that, she turns kind of sharply to look at him. And I see. Charlie's a really special friend, isn't he? And this is her clocking he's gay, right? Well, he's not. He's bi. But she's clocking that there's something going on between the two of them, it feels like. I thought at first with her, I see, she was like, oh, no, he definitely crossed the line, so he deserved to get hit. But it really felt more like you wouldn't have gotten that upset about it if that wasn't like pushing a button for you. Which I was a little disappointed by in a way, if I'm reading that right, because I wanted her to just be like, good for you, son, for standing up for your friend after they used a slur. But it felt much more like, well, you reacted this way clearly because it has something to do with you, instead of it just being you righteously angry, which would be fine. But anyway, yeah, she just like, there's a bit of a moment where they just like look at each other, but they are each sort of looking away when the other turns to one another. And Nick says, yeah, he is. And I love her expression here, because I don't think there's anything in her expression that's disapproving. I think she's just sympathetic. And I always think about this as a parent, how hard it must be to know how to navigate when your kid comes out, because they are going to be dealing with some very real shit. And if you yourself are not out, you are not going to know what to say. You don't have advice. Like, most of the things somebody's children will go through as they get older are just things that we have also encountered, even if the context was different because times change and technology changes. We can sort of like pull from our own past and remember what things were like. But you come across something like this, if you're a straight parent, you've got no well to pull from. If anything, sometimes you may remember being one of the people who picked on somebody. And that's a whole other like baggage, you know? So I really feel for parents who are like, they want to be supportive, but they just don't really know what to do or say. It's probably mostly just about being there and listening and, you know, doing some education. But in the moment here, you can see she's so concerned, and she's just like, I'm not going to say anything more because we don't need to do this. He's clearly still upset from what just happened, but I don't know, I just liked her acting here a lot. So we cut to the next morning. Charlie's alarm is going off. We see him heading into school, and he's got headphones on, and he looks really miserable and just sort of withdrawn. And he's crossing the area where Nick's friends all are, and Harry, of course, looking for your boyfriend. And Charlie stops, looks at him, and Harry says, I know I'm attractive, mate. There's no need to stare. But he's got this giant welt on his lip. And Harry says, Nick Nelson's got some serious anger issues. He can't seem to take a joke anymore. You know, I was only joking in the cinema, yet he starts fighting when I've done nothing. And Tao comes running up here. I think he saw Harry's face and thought they had been in a fight already, him and Charlie. And he's just like, are you okay? And Charlie immediately turns away and is just like, let's just forget it and go inside. But then Harry has to get in Tao's face. You all right, mate? You want to fight too? To which Tao says, you clearly didn't get hugged much as a child, but if you're craving human contact that badly, you could just say so. Which is a pretty good response. Harry says, you should listen to your boyfriend. At least he knows his place. Which is so... Ew. I mean, like, I can't, like, where do you even start with how gross that is? Ugh. Ugh, Harry. I just want somebody to give him a swirly. Like, so, of course, you know, he had just come off of this night that was really, like, high tension and terrible. He's coming into school trying to keep his head down and gets fucking, like, got before he even gets in the building. He goes to homeroom and there's Nick with the mark on his face, and he explains about the fight that they had and how he lost it. Charlie's trying to say, you don't need to do that. I'm used to people saying this stuff. And Nick is like, but you shouldn't be putting up with that. You shouldn't have to put up with anything like that. Charlie says, I'm sorry. Sir, literally why? Nick says, you're not allowed to say the S word. Correct response. I don't want to be friends with those people anymore. And Charlie says, I don't expect you to dump your friends for me. And I'm like, Charlie, on the one hand, I get it. Like, this comes from a place for me, and this is not necessarily where Charlie's coming from, but I think for Charlie, it's coming from a place of like, I don't want it to feel like Nick has to sacrifice everything because then he'll resent me. For me, where I would be coming from on this is, as a woman, it's always been emphasized greatly that you should be low maintenance. You should be very, like, not demanding with a boyfriend. Because if you're demanding, that means that you are a shrew and, you know, like, really think that you're worth more than you really are. And the idea of, like, telling a guy that he can't hang out with his friends anymore is, like, one of the number one things that you're taught you should never even hint at when you're dating. So, coming at it from that perspective, I can kind of see where Charlie's coming from here. But as an adult now, all I can think is, I would have a hard time dating somebody who was friends with people like this. I don't think I could. Like, you get old enough to see who somebody hangs out with in their free time says something about them. Whether they're like those people or not, they tolerate those people. And that's important information. Are you willing to become close with somebody who is a coward? And I'm not trying to call Nick a coward exactly, because he's attempting to stand up. But there is an element of, like, how long has Harry been picking on people? And you only have just started to step up because you are personally getting involved with Charlie. How many times have you just stood by? Because I feel like it's not never. So anyway, he tries to say some of the rugby boys are nice, to which Nick says even they just stood there. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the thing about the not all men argument. When you try and be like, dudes, support us. Well, we're not all harassing you in the street. We're not all. Yeah, but if you're just standing there, what fucking use are you? What are you for then? Like, if you aren't going to stand up and say, fucking stop it, you are as good as one of those pieces of shit. Like, you could say or do anything. And it kills me a little bit. There was I don't know how many of you guys saw this story, but there was a woman, I think she was, I can't remember the country she was from. I'm not sure that she was from or if her parents were immigrants, but it was a black woman who got harassed by some guy. She wouldn't give him her number, and he went and picked up a brick and slammed her in the face with it. And there were like 6 other men standing right there who did nothing. Watched this guy get angry, turn around, find a brick, and come back. And they didn't do anything to protect her or say anything to this guy. Nothing. And she had this like on video from the moment that she started to realize like what was going to happen. And what happened when she posts this is this huge conversation about whether men have an obligation to protect women at all. It became about, was this woman really deserving of them protecting her? Like, because she had said some bad things about black men before. So if she's going to say bad things about black men, then she has no right to expect protection, even though nobody standing there on that street knew who she was. There was nothing like, there was no context like that. But what it came down to was lots of men saying that women have no right to expect strangers to step in because we could get hurt. Wow, you think? Meanwhile, she has a third more face than usual because the swelling was unbelievable. And everybody's like, they were not only trying to like slander that she even deserved help. People tried to say she made it up, that the swelling was photoshopped or a filter. Then they tried to say that it was like fillers that had gone wrong that she didn't want to admit. The dude who did it came out and admitted he did it. Anyway, the whole thing here is what it comes down to is that if you are not willing to step in and stop somebody, you cannot call yourself a good guy. You simply don't get the right to do that. And I don't care that you weren't part of the violence necessarily. If you could have done literally anything and you chose nothing, that is who you are. And you better sit with that. It's the sort of thing lately, like, I have had a few instances where I feel in a moment worried about how to react, and I just have to ask myself, what is going to let me sleep at night? Because there's nothing worse than looking back on a situation and really feeling like you fucked up, like you did the wrong thing. And when you reframe things, what can I live with? Like 20 years from now, when I look back, what am I going to wish I had done? That can really crystallize things. So anyway, him just saying, even the nice ones just stood there. I felt that, you know, I really appreciated that. And he says, I'm tired of all of them. And then he leans over and just puts his head on Charlie's shoulder in a moment of like real affection. That was super sweet. We then cut to Charlie, who goes into the art room for lunch again. And I thought Nick was going to be there waiting for him. I couldn't tell if he expected Nick to be there also. But he ends up just sitting in the corner by himself. We then go to Tao, who is talking to Elle about the whole thing. He says, I think it was my fault. I knew this would happen. I could handle it because I can stick up for myself. But Charlie can't. So I've been like fighting back verbally. And Elle says, you know that'll make you both a target. And he says, well, yeah, I can see that now. But I kept thinking about how bad it was for Charlie last year. I just made things worse. And then he apologizes for always like dumping on Elle. But she's like, considering how it was last term, this is only fair. Harry just thinks it's fun to pick on people. And she shares that he used to say shit to her. And Tao's like, why didn't you tell a teacher or anything? And she's like, because he wasn't even the only one. Like, you know, to a point, what are you supposed to do? And that was the part that felt the saddest to me, is like, you can't go to the teacher and report everybody. And when you're doing this with, because, like, when people are bullying you because they're transphobic, you don't have the guarantee that the adult is even going to be on your side, which is the most incredibly upsetting and depressing part. Maybe she goes to the teacher and it turns out they think that she's a freak, and they are like, well, these kids have a real reason, and maybe if you didn't make yourself into such a target by dressing the way you did, they wouldn't bother you. It's kind of your own fault. Because God knows that seems to be what a lot of people fucking think. So, anyway, sorry, I'm just looking, there's so much chatter, and I don't want to, I'm going to go over, but, Cindy says, I think considering how young these kids are, it's very realistic for Nick to have spent all his life before this just kind of standing to the side, maybe even laughing, until he's in a position to realize that this actually causes harm. I think that's what his mom was saying when she said Nick is much more himself around Charlie. Yeah, that's true. So anyway, Elle finishes with, I'm not surprised Nick started a fight with him if Harry was being a dick to Charlie. And Tao is like, wait a minute, is there something going on between the two of them? And I was so mad at Elle here. Look, I have no right to throw stones. I am the biggest blabbermouth, you guys. And I don't mean to be. I don't even think, oh, I'm going to, break somebody's trust and say a thing. I fucking talk without thinking through the ramifications sometimes. So I fully understand how this could happen. But, oh my God, I was so irritated. Because what happens is extremely predictable here. She tells him that, yes, they are together, that everybody knows but him, and he is incredibly hurt by the fact that he's the only one that Charlie didn't tell. And she says he wants to tell you himself. Well, he said he wanted to tell you himself. And he says, how long have you known? And she tells him the Milkshake Cafe. That was ages ago. I feel so stupid. And he comes to a conclusion, like, I think I know why he didn't tell me. I thought he was going to, like, I thought it was going to be, I have made it so clear I don't like Nick, which is fucking the logic, But that is not the conclusion that he comes to. We'll get there in a second. So we then see Charlie. He's figuring out how to compose a text to Nick. And eventually he just goes with, can we have lunch tomorrow? But he isn't, like, it's clear that he's working his way up to saying, like, I don't know if we should even be together anymore. We go to Tao's, and Elle has showed up, surprising, bringing cookies, wanting to watch a film. And let's see, I'm trying to find the spot where he says, I know why he didn't. Here it is. He thinks I'll say something stupid and out Nick to all Nick's mates. And obviously he cares more about Nick's feelings than mine. Once you get into a relationship, friendships don't matter anymore. Tao, I cannot emphasize enough how much this isn't about you and you need to stop. I get that it feels like it's about you because you are the only one who doesn't know, but you made your dislike of Nick so fucking clear. I can't believe it hasn't occurred to you. You think Charlie's worried you're going to out Nick by accident? What? Where did you even come up with that logic? Why would he worry you're going to out Nick? Like, that doesn't even make any fucking sense. You clearly were in his confidence about him being gay, and that was, like, fine. What do you think he doesn't trust that? Like, no. He's worried about how you're going to react. And we go then to him texting Charlie to come out and have lunch with him. And Charlie says, I'll be there in a bit. I told Nick I'd get lunch with him. And fucking Tao just replies, forget it. We're barely even friends anymore. I mean, honestly, this enraged me. This made me so mad. It's just the situation of somebody who is like figuring out where they stand, like Nick, and trying to understand their own sexuality, not wanting to be like super public with that. Right. Even if it were about, he's afraid I'm going to say something to out him. That, I don't think that makes any sense that you think that, but that would still be a valid concern. You dismissing it is weird. And then here to just be like, we're barely friends anymore. Well, I mean, if you just constantly harp on how much you don't approve of somebody, that clearly means a lot to your friend. What do you think they're going to want to be around you for? Like, you're not making them feel safe around you. And I'm not trying to say that if you really think that somebody is bad for your friend that you shouldn't tell them, because like, you guys know, I was really on Tao's side in the episode where it was Charlie's birthday, because he thought that Nick was about to go on a date with a girl and was like, Charlie is just going to get hurt and this sucks and I can't just watch this happen. I felt that way was the right way, but I think part of the issue for me is, Tao says it's been ages since the Milkshake Cafe, and I don't have a great sense of how much time has passed or how much they've seen each other. So for me, it feels like he's really overreacting to a very short period. And I think maybe I don't have a good grasp on how long it's been or how things have been between the two of them. So yeah, he basically, like, after just being like, Charlie can't stand up for himself, completely turns his back on Charlie in the grossest way. And then we have Charlie starting to tell Nick, maybe we shouldn't be together anymore, when here comes Harry swooping in, and he starts some shit with Tao, and the two of them, he grabs the drawing that Elle did and is making fun of Tao because it says like Tao and Elle, I think. It was like Tao plus Elle. And he chases after Harry, who's waving it around, shoves him to the ground, takes the drawing back, and then dumps his drink in Harry's face, which was honestly the most fucking satisfying. Harry stands up saying, you're going to regret that, but looks like he's going to start crying. And I'm thinking to myself, look, I know Tao's not a rugby lad, but he's very big. I don't know, Harry, if you can actually handle this. I don't know. This is when somebody comes inside and starts like, oh, there's a fight. Everybody come quick. Charlie goes out and he sees Tao like literally rolling around on the ground with Harry. Nick breaks in and pulls Harry off of Tao, which causes Harry to go after Nick. And Tao runs away when Charlie comes after him and says, what happened? Tao says, why didn't you tell me about you and Nick? I thought we were friends, but you've forgotten about me. This is all your fault. Just leave me alone. This is all your fault? Like, literally how? What? Like, the only thing that I could say is that he would think maybe if Charlie were sitting with him, that Harry would not have come by and like busted his balls, which of course he would. Harry had no problem busting his balls when Isaac was sitting right there with him, which, by the way, where is Isaac? Because normally he's out there sitting with Tao and he's not. I don't know what to think about Isaac right now. We haven't seen him like in 2 episodes. So yeah, this is just like so frustrating because all Charlie has been doing all episode is blaming himself. And then here comes somebody who keeps insisting, I'm your friend. I'm your real friend. Everybody is your fake friend. And then he tells Charlie it's his fault. It's like, it's such a Charlie has had to take so much shit this episode, you know, between Tao and Harry and Ben. It's just been like one punch after another of people who are laying everything at his feet. And it makes me so angry. And I'm so mad at Tao. Like, oh, you didn't have to tackle Harry and start going on. Like, you're taking out your anger about the thing with Nick on Harry, which I frankly have no problem with because fuck Harry. But this has absolutely nothing to do with Charlie and Nick. Never mind the fact that, oh, he didn't tell me because he was afraid I would out Nick. And then he's standing next to a huge group of kids yelling, why didn't you tell me about you and Nick? Well, hey, Tao, how's that going with you keeping your mouth shut, bud? Because it feels like you just could have outed him if anybody had been paying attention. And they may have been. Like, you aren't exactly being cautious, and it appears maybe he had every right to fucking not tell you. So, I'm just saying. And you guys, I was so sad as Tao like stomps away. Then we just get the fucking end credits. And I never thought that was just the end of the episode. And poor Charlie is standing there hyperventilating basically because he feels so guilty over things that are absolutely not down to him at all. And it's not fair. And I hate it. So, yeah. You guys, I'm so mad at Tao. I get so much of where he's coming from, but everything is filtered through this profound self-absorption. It's so main character. Like, just step outside yourself for a second and see it through your... But no, it's all about what I want is to keep our friendship the exact same. What I want is for you to not like branch out and meet people that I don't approve of. What I want is for you to tell me everything first and why, like, whether I deserve to know or not based on my behavior. It's all about him. It's just so selfish. And the way that he's lashing out at Charlie repeatedly, he just doesn't seem to see. You're pushing Charlie away. If you want to keep your friends, you're really doing a weird thing here, trying to show that. Like, this is not adding up. The math ain't mathing. Anyway. All right. I'm going to wrap up. But you guys, it's going to be a minute until the next episode. Y'all know I already mentioned this last time, but I'm taking, Sunday is my birthday. So I am going to be taking the next several days of recording off. So the next one, because Cindy is going on a trip, I won't hit the next episode until the 17th because Cindy wanted to wait until I came back. And if I'm not mistaken, the next episode is the finale of the season. Am I right? So I'm gonna watch the finale like probably pretty soon, not tonight, but I'm definitely watching it before then. I cannot believe, though, that I'm going to have to wait so long to talk about it. So, and I want, like, usually when I rap on something, I can go, like, check up on other people's opinions in the blogosphere, as they used to call it in the 2008s. But because there's another season out, I can't safely do that because I could definitely spoil myself. So I can't even, like, go and satisfy my need to talk with some other content. It's going to be tough. Tough. What can you do? All right, guys. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Appreciate you all a lot. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.